Radical acceptance. Wake up. The world needs you. You need to stop lying to yourself. It's a bad habit many of us learned since we were young. I want to have a real conversation with you. I do get hired to do this sometimes, but this isn't a motivational talk. I will not share a simple list of tips in this video. Let's have a real conversation. The kind a good friend has with you when he's watched you drift for long enough and loves you too much to stay quiet. Let's get to it. A lot of men are living in a fantasy version of their own life, ignoring the facts, closing their eyes to the state of their family, their finances, relationships, mental health, their body, their home, or anything else under their dominion. They're not living in the world they're actually in, but the one in their mind that they would be living if things were different, if their job was better, if their marriage was easier, if they'd made different choices 10 years ago, or even back in high school, if the circumstances would have just been in their favor and they were one of the lucky ones. And while they're waiting for that version of their lives to arrive, their actual one that they've been given is passing them by. The kids are growing up, the years are passing by, and the man they were meant to be is still somewhere in the future, waiting on conditions that have never been ready. I am not saying this to shame you. I'm saying it because I think you already know it's true, and I think part of you is tired of trying to pretend it's not true. There's a famous prayer that comes from Alcoholics Anonymous. You've probably heard it. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. It became famous in addiction recovery communities, but I think it belongs to every man who has ever been stuck, because what it describes is not a spiritual nicety. Most people also forget the rest of the prayer. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardships as the pathway to peace, taking, as Jesus did, this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. Amen. It's a precise diagnosis of exactly where most men get paralyzed. They spend enormous energy either trying to change what they cannot change or refusing to change what they absolutely could. And in both cases, the cost is the same. Nothing moves while you spend your energy wishing that this life was different and that it could be put on hold. What I want to talk about today is the first part of the prayer. The part that's hardest to say and the hardest to mean. Acceptance. Real acceptance is not a helpless resignation or simply giving up. Please don't confuse this. Acceptance is not making peace with mediocrity. The specific act of looking at your life as it is right now, without a filter or the excuses. To actually do this is not easy, and it's going to take the intention and the full strength of your will. You cannot wait for someone else to go first. This is your life, and only you can say, this is where I am. This is what's true about my life, and I am the only one who can decide what happens next. You cannot change what you refuse to see. As a coach, I've learned this to be incredibly true. Change is very hard for us humans. I think this is why most people don't do it unless they're forced to by external conditions. There's a principle that shows up in therapy, in spiritual direction, and honestly, in every serious tradition that has ever thought carefully about human change. You cannot transform what you will not first acknowledge and say, I have a problem, or this has to change. You cannot fix what you are still pretending isn't broken. I'm not even talking about serious changes needed, like for those who are in the chains of addiction. The same principles apply. If you haven't acknowledged where you are standing, you cannot move forward. Before you even share it out loud with anyone, you have to admit it to yourself. This sounds simple, But it isn't. We are often best at lying to ourselves because looking clearly at where you are requires something most men have been quietly trained to avoid: vulnerability without an audience. It demands honesty without a defense. The willingness to sit in front of your own life and say, without blaming your circumstances, your past, or anyone else, this is what I have done and what I have been given so far. The so far is important. This acceptance is not a verdict. It's a starting point. But you have to actually get to the starting point before anything changes. And sadly, a lot of men never do this because the gap between who they are and who they know they're supposed to be is too painful to look at. And it's easier to just stay busy, stay distracted, stay focused on what they would do if things were different. The gap will not close by looking away. It will only close by looking directly at it, accepting it as the truth of this moment, and then deciding what you're going to do about it. That sequence, see it, accept it, act on it, is the only sequence that has ever worked. Everything else is just another way of staying stuck. You see, our forgetful hearts need a good reminder before we go any further. Because I think this is the part that makes everything else possible. You are not your worst decisions. You are not your drift. You are not the distance between who you are and who you were made to be. You are a son of God. I'm not sharing this as a greeting card sentiment to make you feel better. This is a theological claim about your fundamental nature and your indelible dignity. And it means that no matter where you are standing right now, you have not been abandoned. Every day above ground is a great day. Pitbull. Please hear this. You are not too far gone, and it is not too late to make the best of this. If you're here on this earth, you are not beyond the reach of grace or the capacity of your own will when it's properly ordered. But here's the other side of that coin, and this is the part that sometimes men want to skip over. Being made in the image of God means you carry something real, something serious. It means you were not put here to just drift. You were not put here to just coast on potential. We're not put here to manage a comfortable, forgettable life while the world waits for you to show up. There is a version of you that your wife needs, that your children need, that the people in your orbit need. And that man does not appear by accident. He is chosen, he is built deliberately over time through the daily decisions to live beyond convenience and comfort. They have become the idols of too many men. This message is actually at the core of my own mission. There is a real crisis happening among men right now, and maybe even especially in the church. And it's not a crisis of talent or intelligence, or even opportunity. It's a crisis of responsibility, a quiet epidemic of men who have stopped taking ownership of their own lives, and have replaced that responsibility with justifications for why things are the way they are, explanation for why they haven't moved, excuses for why the conditions just aren't right yet. And I want to be clear, I'm not talking about men who are genuinely suffering, who are facing real hardship, real loss. That is different. I'm talking about men who are doing okay, who have more than enough to work with. These are the men who have been given real gifts and real capacity, and who are wasting those gifts on inertia while telling themselves a story about why it isn't their fault. The victim mindset feels so safe. That story costs more than they know. It costs them their sense of agency. It will cost them the version of themselves they were actually capable of becoming. Once we look past ourselves, we can recognize that our lives don't just affect us. It costs the world something too, because every man who goes to his grave having never really shown up is a loss that ripples outward in ways he never considered. Did you know that there is this universal call to holiness? Not a holiness for special vocations or priests or saints, but holiness as the ordinary path of every baptized Christian. It is attainable by you, but holiness is not passive. It is the active pursuit of a life of virtue. The daily choice is to be more than your appetites or your fears. That call doesn't get easier to answer the longer you wait. It gets harder because you've been conditioning yourself against it for so long. So, what does radical acceptance actually look like in practice? Because I think the word acceptance can sound like a passivity if you're not careful. And that is not what I mean at all. Real acceptance is an act of courage. It means looking at your finances as they actually are, not as you wish they were, or as they were going to be once things settle down. It means looking at your marriage honestly, at what you are actually bringing to it, and what you're withholding from it. It means looking at your health, your habits, your relationship with your kids, your prayer life, your work, and asking not, why is this hard, but what is actually in my power to change starting today? That is the second line of the Serenity Prayer showing up. The courage to change the things you can. And there is almost always more in your power than you've been willing to admit, because admitting it means you're responsible for it. And responsibility is weight that a lot of men have been quietly putting down because it felt like nobody would notice if they put it down. It didn't feel like someone was forcing them to carry it. But here's what I've seen over and over in working with men. The weight of responsibility is nothing compared to the weight of regret. The man who picks up his life and carries it forward, even slowly, lives differently than a man who spends his years wondering what might have been. One of those men is tired, sure, but alive. The other is comfortable, but hollow. And you can tell the difference just by looking at them. There's a concept in moral theology about virtue that I think is deeply practical for this moment in time. A virtue is not a feeling. It's not a personality trait you either have or you don't. Virtue is a habit. It is a capacity that is built through repeated choice, strengthened through use, but also weakened with neglect. Courage is not something you're born with. It's something you build by doing courageous things. Imperfectly at first, of course, more fluently over time. This means that the man you want to be is not a distant idea that requires perfect circumstances. He is a direction, and every day, every decision, every small act of discipline and honesty or sacrifice is either moving you toward him or away from him. You can't hold time from passing. You are always becoming something. The only question is whether you're choosing what that something is, or you are being passive by letting circumstances choose for you. Jose Maria Escriva wrote that we have to be contemplatives in the middle of the world, not removed from it, not waiting for the monastery, but fully present to the ordinary life you are actively living right now. There, you will find the place where God is asking something from what he has already given you. The ordinary moments, the hard conversations, the decisions nobody else will ever know you made. Those are not interruptions to your real life. They are your real life, and you will harvest the fruit or pay the consequences. These moments are the place where the man you're becoming is either built or abandoned. I hope you know that God really trusts you. He has given you so much already. It would be a shame to hide it or waste it. My friend, here's where I want to leave you. And I want it to land the way a good friend would say it, with full belief in who you are and full honesty about what you've been doing with it. You are capable of more than you're currently doing. This is not an accusation, and I'm speaking to myself too. It is one of the most helpful things I could say to another man of faith. You are not finished. We have work to do for the glory of God. The life you are living right now is not the final word on what your life would have meant. but it requires something from you today, not tomorrow. This can't wait for a better time, when things settle down, not when the circumstances finally cooperate. You need to take a step in the right direction today. If you ask yourself, if today was my last day, what would be my biggest regrets? What did I leave undone, especially for your loved ones? It requires you to look honestly at where you are without blame and without shame, and to say, this is the point where I change my direction. What is the one thing, the most important thing within my power to change? And what am I doing about it before this day is over? Please don't get overwhelmed and try to fix everything. Start somewhere. That's it. It takes only the slightest change to navigate to a new destination. See this place clearly. Accept it fully, even with what you're not happy with. There's so much to be grateful for right now. You've come a long way. I just want to see you try for more. Act on what you can and trust that the God who made you, who knows you through and through, has not stopped believing in you, and he will meet you in this moment. You have been blessed by the King of the universe. The world needs you to be better today than you were yesterday. Your family needs it. The people in your community need it. And when it comes down to it, I know you need it too. Not because you're failing, but because you were made for more than this. And somewhere inside you, you already know it. I have so much passion and hope for the impact that men of faith can have on the church, and most importantly, the world, if we work towards this together. I'm looking for more men like this. My name is Chris Almanza, career and purpose coach and speaker. I wish you peace and success. God bless you.